Hello and welcome back to the Luke Bugbee Show. I'm your host, Luke Bugbee, and we have a crazy episode in front of you. We're going to talk about the Knicks. We're going to talk about clavicular getting a surgery. Oh man, I'm just joshing with you. This is going to be a big episode covering a very popular movie, Interstellar and Contact. Interstellar is the guest choice. Who is my guest today? Want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I am Liam Daily,
Mhm.
joining you here today with talking about one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a lot of people's one of their favorite movies, honestly. We can get into we're definitely going to talk about the legacy of this movie because it's really interesting. But
hmm
let's just jump into Interstellar, Christopher Nolan. Introduce it. Sure, you've heard of it. Main cast, I'll just shout out Matthew McConaughey, Anne Hathaway, Jessica Chastain, Bill Irwin, and Michael Caine. Ton of other people in this movie. We'll get into it. In case you haven't seen it, there's a couple of people I guess I don't want to spoil because there's some fun cameos in here. But yeah, we'll start out with that movie. Liam, why did you choose Interstellar?
Interstellar to me has always been one of my top tier movies. I've loved sci-fi and those types of things, and Interstellar takes it to this level of these deep storytellings with setups near the beginning of the movie that don't pay off until the very end, and these intricate plot lines that I personally fell in love with. It's just one of my favorite movies of all time.
So, when was the first time you watched it?
Oh man, I think I watched it probably way after it came out. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Probably around like 2020 ish
2020?
is when I first watched it, and because it like looked like a cool sci-fi movie, and I was at.
Yeah, I'm wondering how a lot of people first got introduced to this movie because it is like, I mean, obviously, it's a good movie. I'll say that out front, but it's one of our biggest directors right now, but I still can't help but feel it's gotten a level of popularity in the last couple of years that didn't have like pre-pandemic, maybe TikTok. I feel like this is a big thing that is like kind of becoming popular with like younger people. And so, where did he hear about it?
Yeah, I think it has a bit of a cult following here. I know like recently a lot of people have been comparing it to like movies like Project Hail Mary and other things like that. I don't think I heard about it. I just happened to watch it, so maybe I'm an outlier on that. But
Hmm.
I do agree with you that it is one of those movies that, despite coming out in 2014,
2014, yeah.
it's still talked about and watched today
Hmm.
almost as much as it used to be.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I remember I started getting into movies around a little after this came out. I think like 2017, 2018 is when I started to get serious. And I mean, Christopher Nolan was always one of those big names, but up until that point, his big movie was always The Dark Knight. Like that was the one everyone
Mm-hmm.
always talked about. But now I feel Interstellar surpassed it, which is like kind of interesting to think about. And I know some people are like a little hesitant to say that Interstellar has passed popularity of The Dark Knight, but you look at like these what people are talking about, especially on Letterboxd right now. I can get into that. Um, it really is one of the most popular movies on that site. In fact, it is the single most logged film on.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
7.35 million people have logged this movie on Letterboxd, which is crazy to think about that many people on that app. Has a 4.4 average rating, but you go back to the reviews at the time: 74 on Metacritic, 73 on Rotten Tomatoes. People,
hmm
it got some pretty lukewarm reviews when it first came out, but now it's perceived as a classic. And I'm guessing you loved it right out of the jump.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I first watched this movie, I fell in love with it, and it's one of those movies to me where you can rewatch it and make certain connections and understand things that you. I mean, Christopher Nolan is one of those directors that just
Hmm.
he really takes time to put into his movies. I'm personally looking forward to the Odyssey coming
Oh
out
yeah,
next
same
month.
here.
Can't wait. I trust Christopher Nolan's work, and this is one of those examples that has just built that trust for me personally.
Yeah, definitely. I can understand that. Is this your favorite Nolan?
Ooh, that's a hard question. I'm gonna say yes. I
Okay.
will say yes. Yeah. I'm not, and that's not me saying I think it's his necessarily best work,
Mm-hmm.
but just to me personally, this is the film that I get the most enjoyment from.
I understand that.
You know.
Yeah. It's a lot of people's favorite. I am the Prestige guy. Have you seen that one?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I love that movie. I just like it's a prank war between magicians. Like that's just like a fun
Yeah,
concept for a movie, you know. But I totally understand the hype around this one. It's one of his most beloved. This is I've seen on this watch. I realized I actually haven't seen this movie the entire way through.
oh my.
This is my first time in like a full viewing of it. I don't love this movie quite the
Really?
way everyone else seems to love it. I get it and I really like it and really appreciate it, but there's parts of it that just kind of fall short of it for me
Hmm.
personally. And so I just kind of want to pick your brain a little bit and see what like
Okay.
and see what you love about it and see what everyone else loves about it, because at a certain point it's the most watched movie on Letterboxd. It's has some of the most hardcore fans out there. There's clearly
Hmm.
something about this movie that I don't get, and I just I want to talk to someone about it and hopefully like have
Alrighty.
a better understanding of why people are so passionate about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Start out beginning of the movie, great opening with the library, the dust falling down. You have everything on Earth um, immediately pretty well set up. He just doesn't give a about his son. Loves his daughter, but played by a young Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah.
Interesting. Did you know who he was when you first saw this?
No, I did not. When I was doing some extra research, I noticed that was him, and I was like, oh man, is this one of his first big roles that he got?
Yeah, this is really is like the first big
Really?
role. He has said before in like an interview that this is his favorite movie that he's ever done,
Hmm.
and like he talks about it all the time. Like this is the one that he rewatches. It's just funny because he's like in
Kind
like
of a
what
minor
5 minutes
role.
in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. um, but I just find, I mean, yeah, it has some staying power in that regard alone. But he's good in it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the younger girl, Mackenzie Foy, she plays the young Murph. Not as good. She's fine.
Yeah, I think this is one of those cases where I feel Nolan's writing did really good, and in some cases, you can have actors
Mm-hmm.
not always necessarily deliver.
Mm-hmm.
I I do think she does well enough to me where I can still feel what, in my opinion, is the most important thing, but like the desperation that she feels
Mm-hmm.
for Cooper leaving her. Um,
That scene
and
works.
and she can absolutely convey that, but her more like talking scenes, I can see the flaws. And as
Mm-hmm.
I was looking through different things, that's the thing I seem to notice is a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
noticed, some here nor there acting or some certain dialogue that's maybe a little out of place or
Mm-hmm.
clunky. And I absolutely, I can understand those flaws. And like I said before, it's like I don't think this movie's by in any means perfect, but to me, it just I I really love the way it sets up the entire story and fulfills it by the end, and
Mm-hmm.
just the feeling it leaves you with. Because to me, ultimately, this is a in a weird way like a love story, not like a romance, but
Oh
a
yeah,
father daughter.
yeah, definitely.
And it just it doesn't really like spell everything out for you. You kind of have to like figure things out yourself, and you are just given this information and process it. And like the endings, a lot of people don't
Mm-hmm.
understand per se because they're kind of open ended on what.
Yeah, I don't know if I actually fully agree with that. There's parts of it where I feel like it kind of explains itself a little too much.
Hmm.
Like Anne Hathaway, I guess this is going to be spoilers from here on out. I mean, it's hard to talk about this movie without the ending. Anne Hathaway has a monologue before visiting Matt Damon's planet
Hmm.
about like the power of
Of love.
love,
Hmm.
and that feels a bit too much, like kind of on the nose in terms of
Hmm.
explaining what the
Hmm.
movie's about. You have Cooper, who it's a very powerful scene when he's like going through the library and
Hmm.
is able to make contact with his daughter. But the fact that you have Tars there for him to like kind of talk his
Spell it
feelings
out. Yeah,
out,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I feel like it would have been cooler for me personally, to just kind of have that be almost entirely visual.
Hmm.
And yeah, I really like Christopher Nolan's writing sometimes, and Jonathan Nolan. I keep forgetting his brother is a big part of this too.
Hmm.
Um, I really like their writing in terms of how literal it can be sometimes when it comes to Oppenheimer, especially The Prestige, Memento. But sometimes it feels like it's overly literal in a way
Hmm.
where it kind of pulls me out, and it feels like there could have been something even more special if it was even more vague or open ended. But if enough people are having like problems understanding the movie as it is right now, then maybe they are the ones in the right and I'm the one in the wrong, you know? If
Yeah.
like people have problems understanding Inception, I'm like, well, clearly there's something wrong,
Yeah.
like the general public.
I could definitely see that point. I think I'm a little more lenient on the brand scene
Hmm.
in the middle there. But to me, the one that does actually kind of stand out as like dialogue that I didn't necessarily like, and as you said, like spelling it
Hmm.
out for you, is when they're in the Tesseract, and he's talking to Tars, and he says it's love, Tars,
His love time.
and that just makes me think like,
Hmm.
oh, yeah, thank you, you know,
Yeah.
but I absolutely see that
Hmm.
in the film. There is a bit of the spelling out,
Hmm.
but I still think there's enough nuance in the
Oh yeah.
story for me.
Yeah, for sure. This isn't like a problem for like the entire movie, but I think there's
Hmm.
like two or three scenes specifically that are a little bit too much of that. I already mentioned that love explaining love, Coop kind of explaining love to Tars. The one other scene that gets on my nerves a little bit, which I don't know as much of a scene as much as it is like kind of a stretch of the movie. It's the entire Matt Damon character, Dr. Mann,
Really?
where he suddenly just becomes like a James Bond villain. And he's like, "You see, Coop, I've lured you out here so that way I can
Yeah.
push you down because I am lonely." And you're like, "All right, man." Matt Damon is like, it's really funny when he shows up, honestly.
Hmm.
Did you know Matt Damon was in it when you first saw it?
Not upon my first watch. When I saw him, I was shocked, and I think.
Hmm.
Do you think it was for like the humor of Matt Damon being in some sci-fi movies and in some other pieces like that, or do you think Nolan genuinely chose this character for completely other reasons, and he just so happened to play that role that was kind of so comedically similar to others he may have played?
I think Matt Damon was chosen for this movie in terms of he does have like this kind of like goodness aura around
Hmm.
him, like playing Jason Bourne, Ocean's 11, Goodwill Hunting, especially. I'm not saying that he's like a perfect guy in all of those, but he does kind of have like a almost sweetheart, like America's dad sort of thing, you
Yeah.
know. Whenever you watch him on SNL, he's always playing like a dad part or something. And I think casting him was a great choice in terms of one, like you're shocked, like all of a sudden Matt Damon is in this movie.
Yeah.
And having him actually make the villainous turn, I wouldn't say it's unpredictable,
Hmm.
but it is really great way to kind of play with your idea and image of Matt Damon,
Yeah.
where initially you really feel like, oh, he could be the guy because
Hmm.
like Matt Damon is like kind of a savior type in a lot of
Hmm.
movies. The year after that, he does The Martian, where he plays like kind of a
Yeah.
savior type role, like a great guy. But here it's fascinating getting him to play like kind of a more villainous archetype.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
really great role
Absolutely.
for him.
Yeah, I don't know if you knew this little bit of trivia, but do you know his official name in the movie is Hugh Mann?
Is it really?
Yeah. Just a funny
Yeah,
little fact. I don't
it's
think they
funny.
ever say it in the movie, but I think
Yeah,
it's
probably
in
not.
the
Hmm.
scripts.
That's good. It's
But
pretty good.
yeah,
And Nolan is like sometimes pretty funny, you know.
yeah,
Like having casting Matt Damon in general is like that's a good bit, you know. And Tars in general, you think he would be more annoying than he is in terms of
yeah.
his like humor. He's good.
No, I absolutely love the use of, I guess, the robots in this film.
Hmm.
We have Bill Irwin as Tars and
Yeah.
Josh Stewart as Case.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Both, I think, knocked it out of the park for me.
Case is cool, but like it's kind of the Tars show
Oh
at
yeah,
some
yeah, yeah.
point.
He absolutely has a little bit more significance in the
Hmm.
story, but
And the design of him is just incredible. I mean, like you can argue that it doesn't make sense for like practical reasons, but at a certain point, it's like it's a movie and
yeah,
it's really fun. I've never seen a robot look like that before,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it
yeah.
really when it came to him carrying Brand off of the
Hmm.
water planet, that just kind of blew my mind. That entire sequence
Oh yeah,
with the wave is just some of the best filmmaking you'll see in all of Nolan's career.
This is one of those movies where I'll admit I think it has a few of those diehard fans that'll
Mhm.
get a little like incessant. You know, that's one of those scenes where I agree. I think it's an amazing scene,
Oh yeah.
but it's one of those scenes where I also feel like you have people who like sing its praises night and day, and
Hmm.
like absolutely love it. I'm sure you've heard this like little factoid that everyone throws around that the music during that scene, every tick is a day passing on Earth,
Hmm.
since they're in that
Hmm.
time dilation.
Yeah, great detail, but it's not like something you need to obsess over.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I mean. Is like I don't know how many times I've heard that, and it's just like
It's
it's
that
like
one
wow.
and Lord of the Rings. Vigo he
Oh
broke his
yeah, broke
toe.
his toe.
Yeah, it's like those
Did you
two.
know?
Mhm. It's
Uh,
like that one scene in Barbie. Do you remember where like all the Kens are watching The Godfather and like they're showing it to the girl, like, and it's just him talking over the entire movie and explaining every like detail and scene. That's a
yeah,
Interstellar, bro. Sometimes remind me of
yeah,
not to like diss him, Also, I'm sure plenty of there's Interstellar gals out there,
yeah.
I'm guessing. Um, okay. Did you know where this movie originated from?
No, I did not.
It originated from a conversation between two people, Linda Obst and Kip Thorne,
Hmm.
on the set of a movie called Contact.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they started talking about wanting to get a movie together about this sort of idea. It took them a while. Started to make some progress in 2006 with Steven Spielberg set to direct,
Really?
but they hired Jonathan Nolan to write it,
Mm.
and Christopher's brother, of course. Um, so Spielberg was like going to direct, but he had to drop out, and then Christopher Nolan took over at that certain point. Like the rest is kind of history.
Mm.
It took like many years to like make and write the movie. Christopher actually had to rewrite some of the script. That's why they both have writing credits
Mm.
because Jonathan Nolan's script was too dense and
Mm.
like too like scientific, and Chris
Yeah,
had to
yeah.
like rewrite some of it to make it a bit more audience friendly. You can say that it's not him trusting the audience, but at a certain point the movie's like popular enough where I
Yeah,
can kind of understand,
yeah.
it needed some like
I think
human elements.
that's absolutely something with cinema now is you
Hmm.
do at some points, and I think it's kind of the issue with cinema is when they try to make money off a film. That is kind of
Hmm.
the goal. I mean, you are making art, but like you're not going to get funding if you're
Hmm.
not making money, right? So at the end of the day, we get a lot of cases of movies appealing to people, explaining things to people, being very broad and kind of overly simplified
Hmm.
to appeal to the greatest audience. But in some ways that can really like lower the meaning, and
Hmm.
in like literature, you have works that really allude to meanings and they can really layer like what they're trying to tell you.
Hmm.
But in film, you don't really see that as much anymore.
Yeah, especially not in bigger budget productions
Hmm.
nowadays. Film is like kind of inherently a capitalist work, and especially if you're getting like a big blockbuster.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes people complain, like I'll mention it again, Barbie or like One Battle After Another, of not
Hmm.
being political enough and not pushing enough of an agenda. And you're like, you just kind of have to take a step back at a certain point and realize this is about as far as they can push it, and they are still pushing it
Hmm.
far. It's not going to be, Karl Marx, man. This is
Yeah.
we're getting Hollywood blockbuster movies, and I feel like at a certain point you can push more. I encourage people to push more for independent cinema, but this is
Hmm.
just something that kind of comes with the grain of blockbuster populist movies. Is that it's
Yeah.
not going to be, the exact type of communist you want it to be. It's not gonna have exact perfect politics, and it's a bit of a shame, but it's just part of the way the world works. At a certain point.
Yeah.
Um,
One last thing I'd like to touch on
mhm.
is, in your opinion, because this is one thing I kind of like about the movie, who would you say the antagonist is for Interstellar?
um, I don't really know if there's like a direct antagonist
Hmm.
besides the Matt Damon character, other than just time itself. But what's so
Exactly. Yeah.
fascinating is that time is also kind of the hero
Hmm.
in a way. Um, Everything kind of happens for a reason, and like this entire thing was like set up to win before
Yeah.
it even began, which is kind of what's beautiful about the movie, but also what sometimes makes it a little bit frustrating to rewatch when you
Yeah.
know that everything is
He's gonna
going
fall
to.
into place. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. When the entire world is built like that, but at the same time, every movie's like that. It's,
Yeah.
it's not the, it's not the
I know what's
biggest
gonna
deal.
happen on the second rewatch. It's
Yeah,
ruined.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I was really thinking about it, and yeah, to me, time is the villain, and in some ways, the ultimate thing that helps them overcome this is, like you said, time itself, but also that
mhm,
um, they spelled it out for you a little bit. The theme of love, as they show that the only thing that can, well, maybe not the only thing, but at least the one in this movie that they want to talk about as what can bridge time and space is like human connection
mhm,
and that feeling, and that's what ultimately you know can save this. And we see time, for every character, it's the villain. I mean, even for man,
mhm,
he lands on that planet and he's ready to die, but over time he gets scared and realizes he doesn't want to die, and then
mhm.
dare I say he loses his mind. I don't know
Oh
if he
yeah,
was
yeah.
really rationally thinking about anything, towards the end. But just for every character, I mean, Professor Bran,
Mhm.
he's,
The Michael Caine.
yeah,
Yeah.
Michael Caine back on Earth is, losing the battle of time. Everyone. And it's just the overall villain. And even in scenes like
Mhm,
on the water planet, what makes it so captivating to me is it's an amplification of that.
mhm,
It's not just that time is passing, it's passing faster than normal. And that's what gives you those stakes.
mhm. The 20 years passing is one of the most powerful line readings in the entire film.
Absolutely.
At a certain point, I'll also mention right now the biggest loser to time in the entire movie is Tom, because
Yeah,
he starts out
absolutely.
as Timothy Chalamet and he grows up to be Casey Affleck.
Oh,
Oh man.
interesting character. I'm
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
will say, surprisingly, in movies where we kind of split our attention, we spend our time with Cooper in
Hmm.
space, and then we come back to Murph
Yeah.
and Tom and them. And I honestly found Tom's character to be pretty fascinating, and I think it added a lot where he's, in a weird sense, like a description of human nature.
Hmm.
That despite knowing that so many things are going bad, he's too stubborn to leave, to accept that like he's wrong.
Hmm.
Even when that's like negatively affecting his family.
Yeah.
You know,
I've seen a lot of criticism about the character being unrealistic in that regard, but I would strongly
yeah,
disagree. I feel
absolutely not.
that he is certainly a character that represents a lot of us and kind of the worst of us in a
Yeah,
way,
in
unfortunately.
times of hardship, yeah, like what comes out when we don't have control, because
Hmm.
we want to be in control of everything, and he loses that, and he gets he's
His
pretty
son dies.
irrational. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. He sees a lot of the hardship affecting the people closest to him. And it's just an attachment to his father in a way, but also
Hmm.
his own pride.
Yeah,
There's no way that for him to leave, and you know that. Murph knows that. You have to do some like trickery basically in order to get him out, which
arson.
is a yeah, an incredibly thrilling sequence. And I'll
Absolutely.
mention all. I'm sure this is another fact everyone knows, but all of those corn crops were real.
Oh
They
yeah, yeah,
They grew what I think 500 acres all to be destroyed, which
yeah.
is just
Amazing.
insane. The scene of another one of the most exciting scenes in the movie before you even do any of the space stuff is just him driving through the
Yeah, through the
cornfield.
cornfields. That's a wonderful scene.
Hmm.
Amazing score. I haven't brought that up, but
Oh yeah, yeah.
absolutely kills it. Every single scene in this movie is just enhanced tenfold
Hmm.
by the score. I mean, like we talked about on Miller, the Water Planet.
Hmm.
The docking scene, the cornfield chase,
Hmm.
the burning of the cornfield. All of those scenes have such amazing soundtracks that just keeps you on the edge of your seat.
Incredibly thoughtful score, but
Mhm.
one of the things that's also great about it is when they choose not to use it. When
Absolutely.
moments of just like the idea of silent space
Hmm.
is becomes that much more terrifying and that much more leaning forward into your seat. I will say the mix isn't entirely perfect when you get to home theaters now, especially
Hmm.
because the audio was kind of made for that IMAX quality.
Yeah.
So sometimes like it's really hard to understand what the characters are saying.
Yeah.
Um, I know some of that was built in as an intentional thing for Christopher Nolan to have like the sounds overpowering it, but there's also
Yeah.
points where it's like a
A little
classroom
too much.
conversation.
Yeah.
Like I can't even, like nothing's even happening. I should be able to understand. I mean, you just watch it with subtitles, so it's not a big deal. But
Yeah.
that Matthew McConaughey drawl at a certain point, you're just like,
What's
just
going
talk
on?
normal.
Yeah.
Okay, but I also want to mention really fast, before getting back to the contents of the movie, where this takes place in the career of Matthew McConaughey, because I think this is incredibly fascinating.
Hmm.
Matthew McConaughey, obviously, we're going to talk about him later in the
Yeah.
episode of another movie.
Double star.
Yeah, he had a great run in like some of the stuff in the '90s and the 2000s, like kind of bigger blockbuster, some rom coms and stuff. But he really fell off for a minute. But the run he had in 2012 to 2014 is kind of the stuff of legends and what like everyone wants a movie star to be. So I'm just gonna read off what he did. 2012, he did Mud. Seeing that
Mm,
movie, Christopher Nolan seeing that movie is what made him realize that he should play Coop in this movie.
really?
And then had another movie that's held up like iconically. Everyone still talks about Magic Mike. He plays the character Dallas. The year after that, he has another double films of Dallas Buyers Club, which he won the Oscar for, and The Wolf of Wall Street, which is another
Oh
one
yeah.
that is just like held up. I mean, everyone talks about that movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Year after that, 2014, he had True Detective season 1, often regarded as one of the greatest single seasons of television of all time. I see many people put it as the single greatest
Really?
season of TV ever. Yeah, Woody Harrelson also just
Mm,
insane. And then Interstellar that same year. So just kind of 6 back-to-back projects of either proving himself to be an incredible actor, literally Oscar-winning work,
yeah.
or work that has held up even today,
The
and
test of
people are
time.
still
Yeah.
watching it. I don't remember. It's like the McConaissance people called it like at the time,
Yeah.
where it was a genuine state of like this guy can do anything. I don't know if we are quite at that level, if he ever reached that level again at this point.
Yeah.
He's still
What's his been most recent work?
the most recent movie he had was called The Lost Bus, which got an Oscar nomination for visual effects. It went to Apple TV Plus.
Oh.
I didn't watch it. I heard it was fine. It's from the director of the Bourne movies, but apparently this year, I don't know when, he has a movie coming out called The Rivals of Amaziah King
Hmm.
that I heard is supposed to be really good. And
Hmm.
I also heard it's a musical.
Oh, really?
And so I want to hear Matthew McConaughey sing.
I'll have to check that out. Yeah.
Yeah. But other than that, like a lot of animated stuff. He did the Sing movies. Like he's the koala bear in like
Really?
Sing. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
He did do a which I will admit is a good animated movie that I quite like, called Kubo and the Two Strings. He played
Oh, I did like that one.
the
Yeah.
beetle. That was him.
Oh yeah.
I thought he was very good in that movie. But other than that, yeah, just not a ton of stuff. The Beach Bum also shout out, because I feel like I'm a Harmony Korine guy, but no one liked that movie except me. So it's like I don't want to throw that one in there, you know. But yeah, I just wanted to go on a quick McConaughey tangent because he
Yeah.
is pretty integral to the movie. Great performance, honestly. What do you do you have any thoughts on like I mean
I think he knocks it out of the park. He's
Mhm.
one of those actors that I feel like has. I mean, you could argue maybe some issues with some dialogue, but
Mhm.
at least on the acting department, I think he knocks it out of the park.
yeah, I mean it's like a big gifable scene now, but the scene of him crying
Yeah, absolutely.
is incredibly
The
powerful.
emotion that evokes. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Being able to look at Casey Affleck and shed a tear is just like this trash and Casey Affleck is he kind of deserves it. But okay. Um yeah, this was incredibly difficult movie to make. I have a fun fact here of that individual frames of the black hole sequence took up to 100 hours to render.
Yeah, yeah.
800 terabytes. But the reason why it looks so good today and will probably always look good is that it wasn't green screened. It was they did the visual effects first, so they were all
Mhm.
acting like in front of it, and it's just completely seamless. Like you
Yeah,
really
yeah.
can't tell.
And from what I've heard, they were so determined to make that simulation of the black hole look as accurate as it could that it actually kind of advanced the science
Oh, yeah.
of what we picture a black hole to look like. And obviously, it still has some sci-fi aspects to it, but
hmm
it's a surprisingly extremely accurate model, and just one of those things where it just shows the dedication of the craft
Yeah.
to because that's in no way the easy solution to,
hmm
to make a black hole. There are much easier ways to do it, but it's just one of those things that adds to the movie, and especially since that is the metamorphosis of the film, where we kind of
hmm
end his journey and start kind of wrapping things up, it is kind of that
It's important.
critical moment.
Yeah, it's important you nail that sequence, and it's also to be that dedicated to the craft where you understand like new stuff about the black hole and the technology in general. But it's also, for me, not entirely overindulgent in it.
Yeah.
Like, it could almost be like way longer, way more
Mm-hmm.
explanation to the black hole. I don't know what Jonathan Nolan's original script entailed, but I'd imagine there's a lot more scientific
Yeah,
talk about
breakdown.
the. But you get just enough to understand it, maybe a little more than is
Mm-hmm.
necessary, but it also helps make you like even more into the movie and like give you an added sense of realism that when it
Yeah.
happens, you know exactly what is happening, and it's just incredibly thrilling. And when you don't know what's happening, it's because Cooper doesn't know what's happening. We're entering
Mm-hmm.
into uncharted territory with him, and you really do feel
Yeah.
like you're alongside him. The closest comparison, of course, what Nolan is trying to really capture here, obviously, is the Stargate sequence in 2001: A Space
Yeah.
Odyssey.
Some heavy inspiration there in
Oh yeah.
multiple aspects. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, all across the film.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Great film, in my opinion.
Oh
One of
yeah,
my
of
favorites.
course. I mean, the entire design of the monolith, I don't know if it was just, it's been explicitly stated, but it feels like Tar's design is a pretty
Yeah.
clear
Yeah.
homage to that. Well, 2001 is obviously one of the great films ever made. Many people consider it to be the great. And having that aspirations is certainly ambitious to the point where it's almost impossible to like fully succeed a level, because like you can never succeed a level at 2001.
Yeah.
But honestly, more people have seen this one at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
It's
I
probably more beloved by like a general population. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Especially, I think in the younger audiences, 2001 has this
mm-hmm,
reputation as just one of the classics, like
mm-hmm,
everyone technically knows it, but I feel like a lot of younger people maybe haven't seen it or,
mm-hmm. They think
it,
of it as homework.
yeah, it's kind of like that history
Uh huh.
of film, not necessarily something they watch themselves. Versus Interstellar is very much still culturally, significant, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. Well, not to say 2001 isn't.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
absolutely is, but I guess to our generation, what is talked about more would probably be Interstellar,
yeah.
which is
It
quite the
doesn't.
accomplishment.
It doesn't have the point. Interstellar isn't at the point yet where it feels like it's required to see it. Once you feel like
Yeah.
you're required to watch something, like, oh, you need to watch Citizen Kane, you need to watch 2001: A Space Odyssey. Love those movies; they're fantastic movies. But a lot of younger generations are not gonna bite, or also go in with an extra hypercritical mindset when they're
Hmm.
told that this is the best movie of all
Yeah,
time by
absolutely.
like the people older than them. Interstellar is at a point where it's people their own age saying you need to
Yeah.
check out Interstellar, not because like you have to academically, but because you just should,
Yeah.
for like casual
Hmm.
viewing. And I think the sooner we start studying this movie or The Dark Knight or any one of Christopher Nolan's movies, I'm curious to see how it will age, because there's a chance that they will be seen even more hypercritically, and like
Yeah.
more people have issues with it because like this is what I've been saying.
Yeah.
Once
Yeah.
something becomes homework, people are less willing to go in with an open mind.
Hmm.
You know, and I think that's a bit of a shame, but it's also human nature. There's
Yeah. Yeah.
like you can count how many times people have said, "I used to love reading before they made us do it in school."
Yeah.
Like how many times have you heard that? Like over your life. And I think that is incredibly fascinating and contributing to the strange legacy of this movie. I'll be
Hmm.
interested in seeing where we're at with it in 10 years. If it's
Yeah, absolutely. If it's going to continue to have the sort of cultural influence it still does, or if it's going to
mhm.
start to make its way out, you
Yeah,
know.
because I mean Christopher Nolan has already pretty much permanently cemented himself in
Yeah.
cinema's history. That was what his entire best director speech in Oppenheimer was about, where he said a film is still a relatively young medium, a little over than 100 years, and that
Yeah.
he's already such a significant part of it. It says something. He's the
Absolutely.
current president of the Directors Guild of America. Everyone calls him President Nolan. Sir Christopher Nolan. Also, he's been knighted.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh my.
Mm-hmm.
Quite the life.
Yeah.
One last thing I think I wanted to touch on for Interstellar specifically to me was also the I feel like the main themes you see in the film are that of time, connection and emotion. And then for me, honesty plays a big part in it.
Mm-hmm.
And we see some like lines that very much allude to that with the jokes about, well, not jokes, the lines with TARS in case about their honesty levels,
Mm-hmm.
where they say they have 90% or at the end 95.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I think that is some excellent foreshadowing when TARS tells Cooper that, for humans, sometimes lying is the best way to, actually deal with a human emotion.
Yeah.
And later on, we see that Professor Brand himself had lied to Cooper and everyone about the mission itself. And, we see Dr. Mann lie. We see all these different characters lying. And, I think it's quite a integral part, when you realize that Brand, in a way, is a very interesting character to me.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked
Professor
Michael Caine's
Okay.
performance. Yeah, Professor Brand. Sorry.
Yeah, no,
It
no,
is
no,
a
you're
little
good.
confusing because they're both doctors.
Mm-hmm.
So I will refer to Michael Caine's character as Dr. Brand, or sorry,
Professor
Professor.
Brand.
And Dr. Brand will be
Anne Hathaway.
Yeah, Anne
Yep.
Hathaway. But his character to me is one of my favorites in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not necessarily in terms of like how profound the acting is, although Michael Caine did an excellent job.
Of course.
But his character shows, the other side of human nature, dare I say, because he
Mm-hmm.
talks. He's very, in a way, selfless in a like greedy sense. He knows that the best chance to save humanity is not to tell them that they're not saving themselves. He thinks that if he gives them hope, that gives them the best chance, even though if he knows that hope's a lie. Do you think in this film that he is necessarily an antagonist, or do you think in the end he's somewhat of a hero for orchestrating this? Because we don't know if, would Cooper have left if he knew he wasn't coming back,
He wouldn't have, is
I
the
absolutely
thing.
agree.
But it's hard to call him a protagonist
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
the actions that he does. Like he
Mhm.
does do something that sets off like a positive chain of events technically,
Yeah.
but it's all birthed from a lie. So it's really up to debate how honorable he
Mhm.
was as a person, whether or not what he did was the right thing versus the good thing,
Yeah.
And I guess he was technically right in the end, but not even entirely right. Like he inspired Cooper obviously to leave,
Yeah.
but it wasn't his work
Yeah, no.
pioneering that inspired
Well,
the
and
positive change for humanity. All he did was kind of push Cooper into the right direction,
Mhm.
something that could have theoretically been done by Anne Hathaway's character, Dr. Brand, in order to leave. But yeah, it's
yeah.
I don't know. There's no real easy answer to that, which is
Yeah,
one of the better aspects of the film.
Yeah, it's definitely something I was picking my brain about.
Hmm.
Also, another little connection to me was interesting is that our two, pseudo antagonists of Professor Brand and Dr. Mann,
Hmm.
I found this interesting, is that they both die mid sentence, and they're both reciting.
Hmm.
I don't know if Mann is reciting poetry, but he's very much, speaking about something greater than himself in a way.
Hmm.
And I found that connection to be interesting, and I was trying to really understand why that choice was made, because it seems very intentional that the two characters that you could see as kind of villainous in this film
Hmm.
both essentially die quoting something that they personally live by. Professor Brand is quoting his poem, do not go gentle into that good night," as he dies. And that's kind of what he had committed his life to, but it was also kind of a lie because he had given up.
It was a lie.
He had sent them out to colonize another planet, and he gave up on his equation. So he was going gentle into that good night,
Hmm.
but he continued to repeat those lines even though he was lying to all others. And you see Dr. Mann kind of do something similar where he's trying to justify his actions. His last lines are, "There is a moment,"
Hmm.
and that to me is he's like, "I'm doing something important.
Hmm.
I had to do this." Very much a self-justification of like, I'm saving the world and like I had to make a tough decision. But both of these characters are noticeably past during these lines.
Yeah, I mean, both of them are kind of reflecting on their old life
Mhm.
and what they've been building their entire life. what they kind of accomplished in the past. Dr. Mann is theoretically trying to save humanity, but
Yeah.
he isn't really. He's more. It's more important for him to try and save himself.
Yeah.
Both living kind of lives of selfishness, and in living honestly in the past,
Yeah.
they are dying against the sake of progress.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
their entire passing, their entire existence was trying to say that they are, you know, like political in a way, that they're active and that
Hmm.
they can keep like living forward, but no, like not at all.
Yeah.
They both live and they both die, um, existing as they've always have
Yeah. Yeah.
been.
They don't really
Quoting,
change, even though they
no,
think they may.
they don't change at
And
all.
and to me, another thing that's interesting about Man is he is, described as Professor Brand's protege,
Hmm.
and yet, kind of, you could argue this is exactly why Professor Brand was right. He knows the truth, and it kind of drives him crazy that he's going to die out there, and that's why he does all that.
Hmm.
So if more people had been told, would there have been more Dr. Manns? Could we have had more of those people cave under the pressure of
Hmm.
their drive to save themselves? And it's so funny because this movie is full of hypocrisy from these people,
Hmm.
where they claim to be someone and they talk about who they are, but ultimately their actions go the complete opposite direction.
Oh yeah, exactly, exactly. But it's just a movie full of yeah, contradictions, cowardice, but also
Hmm.
bravery, and the only thing actually tying everything together, whether it be Dr. Brand, Coop, Murph, the people that actually want genuine progress and are really putting their lives on the line for unselfish reasons, is love.
Yeah.
And it's a very sentimental idea. Some people would argue it's a bit cheesy, a bit corny, but I mean, I can't lie, I cried at the end. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. This movie hits me in the feels, especially as just that, seeing that connection. And early on they plant those seeds, and this is what I love about this film is you see Murph as a child talking about the ghost and the bookshelf and all these things. And I like that. Personally, my opinion was that she was doing it for attention when I first watched this film.
Mm,
That was my conclusion, and I was thinking about it. I was like, she doesn't want him to leave, so she's pretending there's a ghost, all these things.
mm-hmm.
And then in a few scenes I was like, well, maybe it is a ghost, but as we go on, we make that connection, and obviously it's very much spelled out for you, but I think
Mm-hmm.
that's necessary in a way. If it was more nuanced, I don't think it would have had the impact. Like, they need to just show you firsthand that this is, in a way, him trying to prevent himself from doing what he did,
Mm-hmm.
but ultimately also saving, the entire world.
That's what's interesting about the film, is that it is obviously trying to channel some part of 2001: A Space Odyssey in
Yeah.
terms of the grandness and the epicness, but in any ways it's also just kind of a melodrama,
Yeah,
and it's
absolutely.
really
Yeah.
just about
Just
people and like
across
their
space.
connections. Yeah. And that's where some of the readings of the film can get a little bit frustrating, because that is kind of clearly his main intention of the movie, is that even beyond all the science of it, beyond all the epicness of it, the mystery, it's more just about human connection, and whether or not that's your thing, up to debate. But that's clearly what he's trying to do here, and it clearly works for a lot of people. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a considered a modern classic for a reason. I try to do like a list for every movie we talk about in the podcast. Sometimes I got one, sometimes I don't. If I don't, well, too bad. But I do have one for this. Sometimes I write them, sometimes I don't. This one I did not. I thought this was just interesting to share. They have this available. I thought I would just share just a few and stats from Letterboxd.
Okay.
The 10. You know how the app works with like the 4 favorites and stuff?
Yeah, you can like select them in your bio,
Yeah.
kind of. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, you can. For people that don't know, Letterboxd is a social media app dedicated to movies. On your main profile, you have the option to put in your 4 favorite films of all time. It's become kind of like a cultural thing, your Letterboxd for. But they have openly available the 10 films with the most fans on Letterboxd,
Hmm.
and they have that also based by gender. I can talk a
Oh,
little bit
really?
about that too. Yeah,
Hmm.
because you can put in your pronouns. But I'm just gonna share the top 10 overall
Across it. Okay.
movies with the most fans on Letterboxd. Because there's some interesting stuff in here. So number 10 is Little Women. with, from Greta Gerwig, her adaptation. Number 9, another, we mentioned it earlier, Good Will Hunting.
Oh, really?
Matt Damon, Robin Williams. Makes sense. It's so beloved.
Good
8, yeah. Fight Club with David
classic.
Fincher. Yeah, definitely beloved. Number 7, movie you already talked about on the Luke Bugbee Show, Whiplash.
Really?
Obviously. Yeah.
Number 7. That is.
Yeah. Do you think it'd be higher or not on it?
I guess I didn't think it'd be on it. You know, as much as like I know a lot of people talk about that movie,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of in the same department where it's you know, especially nowadays. Actually, you see a lot of things on social medias about Whiplash. You know, you see clips and other things, and it's one of those things that has absolutely ingrained itself. But to me, I feel like it's one of those things that I feel like not enough people talk about. Like in some ways, like you see it online a lot, but I don't know how many people I've talked to who are like, oh yeah, I've seen Whiplash, or I like Whiplash, you know.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But it's an impressive success story if I've ever heard one, you know. Such a small film,
yeah,
just skyrocketing up there in the big leagues.
Oh yeah, of course. If anyone listening hasn't listened to my episode talking about Whiplash with Matt Nichols, I'd highly encourage you to do so, because I thought it was a very good conversation. Number 6 is Perks of Being a Wallflower. That was the one that surprised me.
I don't think I've even heard of that.
It's like a teen kind of like coming of age movie. It's interesting, but I was just surprised at like number 6. Number 5, another one. It's a little surprising. I like this movie, but as number 5, 10 Things I Hate About You.
Really?
Yeah, romantic comedy with Heath Ledger and Julia Stiles, I believe. A Shakespeare adaptation, which is like a fun time. But I was like, number 5? I don't know. Okay. Number 4 makes some sense. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Classic Jim Carrey, Kate Winslet, lost romance movie. Wonderful. Number 3, La La Land.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Which I think is impressive because Damien Chazelle has 2 movies in the top 10 because La La Land and Whiplash are both him.
Yeah.
I feel like La La Land either one of those movies would probably be higher realistically if it weren't for the fact that it came from the same director, you know?
Yeah,
and some people probably have like a compulsion, like I only should include one
director,
you know?
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Number 2, just mind-boggling, Dead Poet Society.
Really?
Which is fine.
I've heard a lot of talk about that. That's fair. I think that one is one of those films that I hear recommended by people who would consider themselves to be like into film personally. And I know that might not be like the most fun take, but everywhere I go where it's like, what are the greatest movies of all time? And you have people who are like, you know, not giving out Marvel movies, you know, and I almost always see Dead Poet Society. So
it's a good gateway getting into film. Yeah. I remember when I was like 12, this movie meant the world to me. Sorry to be a little. I'm not that sorry. It's a fine film, and I do have one extremely positive memory from it that I don't want to get into on the podcast. But like that movie will always hold a special place in my heart for a movie that I think is just okay.
Yeah.
You know?
No, yeah, I've definitely seen that one and Good Will Hunting on the top of a lot of people's lists.
People love Robin Williams. And number 1 is Interstellar.
Really?
Yep. Number 1 most favorited movie in all of Letterboxd. I'll say right now, it is also the number 1 with men and people that go by they, them on Letterboxd, non-binary people. Number 1 with women is actually Dead Poet Society.
Really?
Which is crazy because there is a scene in that movie where someone sexually assaults a woman that is unconscious, and it is not played as a negative thing. So, you know, don't love that, but, you know, people love that movie, I guess. Yay, Dead Poet Society. But, okay, Interstellar, back to Interstellar. Good movie. Good movie.
Absolutely. I you know, it has its flaws, but again, just, you know, the way it makes you think over the entire course, those connecting themes, and as you get into it more and more on rewatches and upon breaking it down, like I had a great time, you know, trying to understand different characters' motivations and all these things, and it just, I think it made me appreciate it more in a way.
Yeah, that's cool. So. Yeah, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of this movie, but I totally understand the hype, and I still look forward to revisiting it more down the line. I hope it's one that grows on me
Yeah,
the more I watch it, but still, with all its problems, there's undeniable sequences in it. There's
yeah,
stuff
yeah,
that's just unbelievably fantastic, but you know, um, good movie overall.
yeah.
Now it's time to
Speaking of poets, they should have sent a poet, right?
yeah.
Let's talk about Contact.
Talk about Contact. This is from. I'll introduce this movie and its cast for a second. Stars bunch of people once again, but mainly Jodie Foster, Matthew McConaughey, James Woods, John Hurt, Tom Skerritt, Angela Bassett. Directed by Robert Zemeckis. Liam, what did you think of Contact?
Well, I will say when you told me about this movie, I had not seen it yet.
Mm-hmm.
I had heard of it. It's I wouldn't say it's in the same department of like cult classics for sci-fi,
Not really.
but it's definitely a name. It's a
Mm-hmm.
known name,
It has its fans.
and I can say I thoroughly enjoyed it. I can see
Great.
absolutely after you brought up that fact that this in a way kind of honestly seems like a prelude. I can absolutely see how
Mm-hmm.
Interstellar could kind of come from this, and they're in ways very different, but they also have a lot of similar themes, and that's what like
It,
I saw while watching this.
it's in conversation
Yeah,
with Interstellar a lot.
without being like a copy, because
No, no, no,
it
no.
talks about in ways similar things, but it's not like about love, and it's not. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, not really, and it's not about
Uh-huh.
honesty and those other things.
Also from completely different perspectives.
Yeah,
Um, if you haven't seen Contact, I would highly recommend you do so. It's gonna be we'll probably do spoiler free up until a point because I feel like a
yeah,
lot of people haven't seen it. But if you need like a good idea of what this movie is like, and if you're a fan of Interstellar, it's like if Murph, it's from her perspective the
yeah.
entire time. That's like the
That's a
easiest
pretty
way
perfect
to
example.
sell this movie. But I mean, as soon as the movie starts, I'll say I love this movie. I really like this movie. Opening shot alone, you're in for something
Yeah.
special. Like just the radio coming
Hmm.
out, this like that one big going back, seeing how far the universe is,
Yeah.
really putting it into perspective, how large this story is gonna be,
Yeah.
how important everything in this world is, but how insignificant we are in like us in our own sense.
Yeah.
It's kind of, have you ever seen a movie Men in Black?
Yes.
It's kind of funny this movie's opening and that movie's ending sort of have the
Yeah.
exact same.
The zoom out into
hmm
space.
They also came out in the same year, fun fact. That's just like,
Really?
yeah, a little weird coincidence, but
Put it back to back.
yeah. Maybe that's a good pairing. No. No, I'm very happy. I feel like this is a very good pairing with
Yeah,
Interstellar.
absolutely.
hmm
Absolutely.
Um, a little bit of backstory. It's adapted from a novel by Carl Sagan.
Hmm.
I'm sure everyone has hopefully heard of his work. 1979 was when the novel was when they started like working on the novel. I think it wasn't published until 85, if I remember correctly. But they wanted to adapt it into a movie as early as
Almost immediately.
1980.
Yeah.
Yeah, like and it just went through absolute development hell. So many people were planned to or like attached to direct, to star. George Miller had was on it at a certain point. Francis Ford Coppola at a certain point. There was like entirely different ideas and subplots being like added and taken out.
Hmm.
There's supposed to be an estranged teenage son from that was
Hmm.
supposed to be Jodie Foster's kid, and like the producer
Interesting.
is saying like she wants to make contact with the aliens, but she can't make contact with her own son. Like that's stupid. Like I don't. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, I think it's very, I guess you could say lucky, but you see a lot of cases with stories that go through, shaky
hmm
developments where it comes out as like a jarbled mess. You have like, you can
hmm
clearly tell that there were several people all trying to make their story, and it just mixes together in a bad way. Um, but I think it turned out as quite the film.
Yeah, it's a miracle it's cohesive at all, you know, over how long it took to make it, how many people, Julia Roberts, Uma Thurman, Ray Fiennes, like so many different people were attached to do it. Zemeckis even like was offered it in '93 and then he turned it down because he wanted to make a biopic about Houdini. And then he eventually just like got back onto it and made what to me is like kind of it's a bit of a classic. So you
Yeah.
said this is your first time watching the movie.
Yes.
What were your like emotions going through it?
So I've little known fact, I've always been into astronomy. I've always been into the sciences.
Mm-hmm.
I'm planning on going into, hopefully space industry type stuff.
Yeah.
And so seeing this movie was it kind of spoke to me in a way, of seeing someone whose entire life is, I guess, is this a spoiler? No, not really.
Not really.
Whose entire life has been, pursuing their goal of extraterrestrial contact,
Mm-hmm.
and I could really speak to, Arroway or Jodie Foster's character
Mm-hmm.
in that department. But as the film progressed, at first I was taking it very on the nose, but I started thinking about the characters. I think this is one of those films where if you put yourself in people's perspectives, it really enhances my experience. Because at first, it seemed like, dare I say, like petty arguments between Joss and Arroway.
Mm-hmm.
But when I took a step back and I was thinking about it, I was like, oh, I understand what they're,
Mm-hmm.
conveying here. And in that way, that really enhanced it. And then, towards the end of the film, once you get those payoffs, it's so much more impactful when you understand that. If I had been viewing it as just like bickering,
Mm-hmm.
the end would have been like, oh, okay, but you kind of missed the point if that's how you're thinking about it.
No, definitely. I'm just gonna share my like little experience of this movie. I saw it. I've only seen it one other time, and it was about 10 years ago. There's stuff that have stuck with me, but a lot of it felt like I was rediscovering for the first time.
Yeah.
And the main thing I forgot about this movie, especially, and I don't know how I forgot since it's almost like directly what the film is about, is how much of it is about religion and the debate between science and religion.
Yeah, absolutely.
And being, and I want to get, no, I'm not going to get into the ending because
I mean, we can go loose on the spoilers.
yeah, we can. Yeah, we know you should watch it. Good movie. Like we'll get into the ending. I love how spiritual the movie still seems to be.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't give like an exact easy answer for what happened. There are people, despite like the 18 hours of static
Yeah,
thing, that
Dare
still
I say-
think that like she actually didn't go.
Dare I say, I wasn't actually. I mean, I kind of understand, but part of me would have preferred the ending if we didn't get that, because I feel
Me
like
too.
that hammers home the
Mhm.
point is that this whole movie is about faith.
Hmm.
And in many ways, faith is religion, and that's what we associate it with. But to me, it was more just about faith as a whole. A lot of people have faith in religion and in higher powers, or in this case, Arroway has faith in science.
Hmm.
Even though she towards the beginning, she's very closed off to Joss's point of view. But even in the very beginning, she gets criticized the same way and doesn't realize it when she's talking to David Drumlin, played by Tom Skerritt.
Yeah.
He tells her, you're believing, having faith in fairy tales about, meeting aliens. What are the odds of that? They're very low. You're not going off of any evidence. And she's like, well, this is what I want to do. So right there, she's having faith
Hmm.
that aliens exist. She's having faith in her work. But when it's faith about God, she, for some reason, is very much reluctant. And seeing her, realize that that's kind of hypocritical in a way
Mhm.
is really amazing. And in some ways, the fact that aliens are real kind of maybe validates her claim a little bit in the wrong way. But
Yeah.
yeah, just that exploration of faith and seeing both of these characters just realize that they're not seeing the whole truth
Mhm.
and understanding each other. But yeah, back to the ending. I feel like the whole point of the film is really hammered home better if you, the viewer, now have to have faith, you know?
That is absolutely the line of dialogue. If I could just like take that part out of the movie, remove the
Yeah.
18 hours of static.
And it's like a cameo at the end too. It's not even like
It's not even a full scene. Like, yeah, the entire scene is dedicated just to have that one line in it. It sort of retroactively makes one of the most interesting parts about the movie less interesting.
yeah.
But like if I ignore that, you just kind of have to ignore that at a certain point. It is an incredibly fascinating movie about faith, and the fact that there are still some people I've seen online that say, like, they just kind of ignore the 18 hours of static thing and say like that didn't happen, and it was all just like in her mind, and just her needing to have like a spiritual experience of almost a flashing before
her whole
eyes.
life's passion.
Mm-hmm.
If it was a bust, you know, maybe whether her mind made it up or she's lying. I don't think she would necessarily lie, but
I don't think she would lie.
But that she saw what she wanted to see, you know, that's absolutely reasonable. And that's why I also agree that I think that scene was kind of just like, oh, come on, man, you know, because during the court scene, you know, which I think is wonderfully written, how we have this, you know, Arroway was normally the critiquing side of where's your evidence, of where's your, you know, what facts do you have, is now in that position of faith. And that's like that vulnerability where she finally understands that, like, this is what it means. Like, I can't prove anything, but you just have to believe me, you know. That's just such a great scene, in my opinion, you know.
Oh, it's a wonderful scene. Everyone is just acting like unbelievably. James Woods, not a great guy, but he is wonderful in this movie as Michael Kitts. Great. You were saying earlier for Interstellar, it's kind of hard to put out an antagonist. It is very easy for Contact to say exactly who's good, who's bad, but it still isn't like, you know, pandering in that way. It's very interesting. Jake Busey as the evangelical priest. That I think he's the son of Gary Busey, another wonderful kind of actor. Great face on him, you know.
He
great movie face
at
least, you know, like his teeth, like the way he holds his mouth, you know. You know, you can argue about that's like another like little flaw you can point out in the movie and its structure is how did he get on? How lax is the security? But you know, it really works in the moment.
Yeah, it does work in the moment. It gives you that sense of dread. But in my opinion, in some ways, I actually kind of had my gripes with that scene. We had obviously seen his character before as like this kind of villainous character, the way he glares at her and like very much setting something up, but maybe it's just like setting up the fact that certain religious groups have conflict with her beliefs and her opinions. And seeing him there was like that shock of like, uh-oh, you know, this is bad. But also, like you said, it's like, this seems a little unreasonable, you know. It's like someone having a nightmare and like their worst enemy just shows up. The fact that he made his way into this place and, you know, did all this. So in some ways it's a little unreasonable, but I think it definitely serves its purpose where it gives you that dread and you're like, oh no, this is like wrong.
It gives you a sense of how like dangerous this mission is, and you do need to have some way so that Drumlin isn't the one that goes onto the ship. It is very funny that the way they came up with was like, just kill him, but you know. Jake Busey is such a great hire in that regard because like he really does have such a memorable face, like kind of a face meant for the movies, where as soon as like you see him twice beforehand, kind of like the rule of threes in movies. But even just like that first time you watch him, like you remember him, you know? Yeah, absolutely. The camera stays on him, but even if like it didn't, he just like looks a certain way. Yeah, that's incredibly memorable. And that was just like one of my big takeaways of seeing a movie again. Is like that we should put Jake Busey in more movies because like why not? He's really good in this.
I feel like he could rock it in Dune.
Honestly, get him for like a new White Lotus season or something. It's like they always put him in like you know, we just need like a comeback for all the Buseys. Gary Busey. Strange guy. I think he got like shot or something. So I don't know. But yeah, there's a lot of religious aspects to the movie in terms of the religious debate of it. Matthew McConaughey, Palmer Joss, obviously, is a much more religious person in nature than Arroway is. And I really agree with everything you were saying about how fascinating it is to be able to switch up the character dynamics like
Hmm.
that, and just the absolute betrayal you feel in the interview scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about it later as to his motivations, but to me that scene is is really impactful for because you see Dremlin, obviously answer the questions as she puts it,
Mm-hmm.
what they wanted to hear. And I think that's what this movie and Interstellar have in common to me is their explorations of the human psyche in like strenuous situations or
Mm-hmm.
under pressure. In that movie we see people crack under the pressure of time and doing these things, and in this movie we see people really going through metamorphosis because of these pressures and what's going on in their lives. um, Joss begins to understand, Arroway's point of view, and Arroway begins to understand his. And towards the beginning, Joss says that he's like a man of the cloth, but he doesn't follow any like he's not really
Mm-hmm.
because he doesn't really follow any of the rules, and so he has faith, but it's definitely not like
It's his own faith.
yeah, it's his own faith, and it's kind of in what some would call a flawed faith. That's
Mm-hmm.
personal, but definitely he's not the perfect, pious religious man. And towards the end, he starts to understand that like
Mm-hmm.
that's okay. That's
Mm-hmm.
where he stands.
It's uh, definitely a movie about accepting other
Mm-hmm.
people for who they are meant to be, and who you are supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
The compass, of course, kind of being like a perfect symbol of that.
Yeah, yeah,
And adding another, I wish he didn't have that 18 hours line, because that's like another thing that's like such a perfect little detail of maybe this is real, maybe this isn't, is the compass flying out
mm-hmm.
when Arroway is traveling through
Yeah, yeah.
space, you know?
I mean, you could totally argue that fell out of her when she was falling,
Mm-hmm.
and the chair got smashed when it hit the water. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's it's
No,
one of those
because,
things where you could
yeah.
explain it if it weren't for that that
Yeah, yeah,
line.
yeah, 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 yeah. It could be like her reflecting on her relationship with Joss in that moment, or it could be like something
Yeah.
that's literally actually happening, that's supposed to be there from wherever it's the aliens or something more spiritual. And such a perfect detail also, that the aliens that she's in contact with, taking a persona of her dad, which is a beautiful scene,
Mm-hmm.
don't know how the machine works either, or they weren't the ones that created it, or how they
That is
got
an
it.
interesting detail
They are
because
also in like the pursuit of God in like
yeah,
their own
in
way.
their own
Yeah.
way, yeah, they don't understand, and I think that's also the beauty of the movie is they deliver that line about it's lonely, but the only thing that makes it bearable is knowing there's like others.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the whole film. As we see Arroway, she's very lonely
Mm-hmm.
throughout this. Well, not throughout the entire film, but especially towards the beginning. She's alone. She lost her family. She lost everything. And what makes it bearable, as the alien says, is others. And she meets, Josh. She has her team,
Mm-hmm.
and all these people that make life bearable. And that's kind of what we start to see that you can search for answers, but even the highest power in the universe doesn't have those answers for you.
Mm-hmm.
But the wisdom they imparted on you was just spend time with the people you care about. That like that's what life's all about.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a beautiful message too.
It is a beautiful message, and that's what gets to both Contact and Interstellar's point, comparing it once again to 2001: A Space Odyssey. Is that film is about the space, it's about all of mankind and the way it transforms, while both Interstellar and Contact are so fascinating because they present themselves with the illusion of space travel and like setting you up. They hook you thinking that's going to be about like contact, but it's really about the people.
Yeah.
It's about like the human connection that you're able to form
Mhm.
with others. And the most important scenes for the movie, basically the ones that stuck with me for the longest amount of time, were the scenes early on with her as like a little girl,
Yeah, yeah.
and just that incredible visual effect shot of her
Through the
running,
mirror,
yeah,
yeah.
through the
That
mirror.
one shocked me when I was watching it. I
Hmm.
found that
Robert
impressive.
Robert Zemeckis is one of the great film technicians. Even in his films that I'm less fond of, he's always experimenting with the form, trying something new. Sometimes it's cooler, sometimes it's lamer. But this one, and specifically, just really kind of blows your mind of how
Yeah.
well it holds
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Certain parts of it obviously don't look as great as like they could be. I mean,
Hmm.
it's 1997.
Yeah. Yeah.
CGI can only look so good from that time, but the fact that so much of it looks great, the Bill
Yeah.
Clinton stuff is like pretty
Yes. Yes.
seamless,
Yes. Yes.
honestly. And I don't know, I somehow blocked that part out. I always love it when a movie actually says like, oh, the real president at the time is the president in the movie, because
Yeah.
sometimes they hire fake presidents. And I got a big laugh out of like, oh, Bill Clinton is like actually in the movie, you know. And every time they cut back to him, it was just so funny. And I'll say also, I think a problem that people have with the movie that I've seen pointed out. I read
Mhm.
a Roger Ebert review of it at the time, and it was why is Matthew McConaughey like kind of in Bill Clinton's inner circle?
Yeah.
You know,
It's a little strange.
well, it is a little strange if it was anyone other than Bill Clinton. Like, Bill Clinton would absolutely invite like this guy who wrote a paperback novel about science. Like, nah, that's a great book.
Come
I
work
want
with
you
me
on my team. Yeah.
top secret projects.
That's just like a really funny moment. I don't know if it's like unintentional or not in terms of like the
Yeah.
comedic aspect of it, but there's some funny stuff in the movie.
I mean, they sort of explain it with like, in
Mhm.
a situation of an alien encounter, faith becomes an important thing, you know?
Yeah, the Rob Lowe.
Yeah. Yeah.
His he was on the TV at one
Yeah.
point,
Yeah.
and he was also in the conference room talking about like, well, we don't even know if these aliens believe in God, which is a very funny moment.
I mean,
Obviously,
it's funny, but it's absolutely an interesting debate. You know,
oh
that
yeah,
is probably one of the most uh, challenging things for a religion to have happen. You know, because not to get into it, but just it definitely challenges a lot of things
hmm
and would change a lot of things. You know, is everything made by God? Is only us? You know, and you can get into that. And it's interesting that you were also talking about the beginning. um, I noticed a bit of like a rule of threes with religious people. We
hmm
have obviously Palmer Joss
hmm
as the reasonable man. He's very
yes,
reasonable. In
yeah,
the end, he realizes and he says that we're all just pursuing truth, just in
hmm
our own ways. He's absolutely reasonable. We have the crazed
yeah,
evangelical man, um, and he just is an example of, I guess, or a metaphor. Well, it's pretty on the nose of religious extremism, and how
hmm
it's a strenuous
they
time.
call him a terrorist, like in the movie.
I mean,
Yeah,
he blew up a
yeah,
station full of people. I think that qualifies. And we see that obviously he's not a good man, but he shows definitely a side of religion that is real.
hmm
Like, you cannot deny that there are some people who are motivated the wrong way by religion.
hmm
And the last one that is kind of brief, but the priest in the beginning that talks to Arroway,
hmm
he is just of like he's like the not like evil, but he's like the opposite of Joss, as in he doesn't try to answer. He's not searching for the truth. When her father dies, he simply says some things are just left up to God's will,
hmm
which is, I think, what made Arroway specifically really not like religion is his view on it. He negatively influenced her view of it, and Joss is the opposite of that. He's we're pursuing truth different ways, versus the priest at the beginning is very much, I'm not going to pursue the truth because it's like
hmm
up to a higher power,
hmm
and that's what she hated, because obviously she's big into science. She wants to discover answers. She wants to discover the truth, and so he's like that side of religion that's just like complacency, I guess you could say.
No, exactly.
And
Yeah.
you see those three sides, and ultimately the one that she chooses and she's with is seeking truth through faith, and that's
Well, you
evident.
see that the same idea of the priest character represented throughout many characters in her life. Many of the
Yeah,
scientists,
absolutely.
just wanting to stay complacent. People are saying like, "Why should we build this machine? Oh, it could be a weapon. It could be
Yeah,
nothing. It could be just like something that can destroy us, just a way to colonize our own planet." And yeah, it's really fascinating how Arroway's entire idea is just faith, and that's her
yeah,
entire argument the whole time. is that it's important to have faith, but she doesn't even realize that's
Yeah,
where her
yeah, yeah,
argument actually is. It's a very, very well written movie in that
absolutely.
regard.
Yeah, yeah.
hmm James V. Hart and Michael Goldenberg screenplay. Um, yeah, yeah, it's incredibly fascinating. We can talk a little bit about sort of like the feminist side of it too, in terms of
Mm,
that's certainly part of it. With,
in a way, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, the fact that she doesn't believe in God is one thing, but the fact that she's also a woman compared to almost everyone else being
Being a
up for
man.
the
Yeah,
job as a man, Drumlin, of course, specifically constantly
yeah,
getting in her way,
and
presenting stuff that was her work as
yeah, yeah, yeah.
passing it off as his. Kind of tying back to some of Jodie Foster's other most iconic work, Silence of the Lambs, where
Mm,
she's also a woman in government that has to make
deal with, yeah, yeah.
deal with sexism on like a sort of daily basis. But the movie doesn't really make it about that. It's
No,
just like
it's
something that
definitely a theme. Yeah, yeah,
exists in the movie, and it realistically would, you
yeah,
know.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
And I think this movie paints like a very like thin line that's really fascinating of realism and like kind of the more fantasy aspects of it.
yeah.
It's science and more science fiction, as the character
Hmm.
says in the movie, combining like the two pretty
Yeah.
seamlessly, you know?
And speaking of Drumlin's character, I wanted to touch on that briefly. I think
hmm
he is a very interesting one because he's definitely kind of an obstacle in Arroway's path, but
hmm
he's never outright a villain. You know, he
Not
doesn't.
really.
They're kind of pursuing the same goal, and that's what's so interesting. But they're doing it different ways. They're very different people pursuing the same truth, the same way that Palmer Joss is also pursuing truth,
hmm
and he's also a very different man.
hmm
Um, he is interesting to me as towards the beginning, you know, we it's a different form of faith, but in my eyes, the message of faith as a whole should be taken into account. So whether you count that as religious faith, faith in aliens, faith in what she saw being real, all of that being taken into a whole. Drumlin starts out as dismissive because he tells her, you know,
hmm
aliens aren't real, all this cuts her funding, and but when it actually works, he swoops in and steals the credit.
hmm
And so he's also kind of another of those metaphors of like being complacent but yet taking credit, like, oh yeah, I knew that, you know.
hmm
And the same thing during
It's infuriating.
the meeting where they're interviewing the
Yeah.
candidates. He just, you know, and is it ever touched on, he is religious, I think, but he
Yes.
definitely
Yes.
overplays
Uh huh.
his religious nature to be the one to go, you know.
hmm
And so you see that level of he's kind of a liar in a way. He's
hmm
complacent and he doesn't believe, but when it turns out to be true, he's taking all the credit. And then he lies about his faith just to get the job. But then, are you a good candidate to represent humanity? You know,
No, like
and
I
he's
don't even know what his experience would be like with the
mm-hmm,
aliens if he was actually the one to go. That's like another thing that like you kind of think about watching it. Is that it kind of always, I mean, obviously in like a cinematic sense, it always had to be Arroway, but there's nothing really for Drumlin to learn from these aliens.
yeah,
We don't even know if they like would have accepted him. Maybe they wouldn't have.
yeah,
You know, I feel like that's a very real possibility, and
absolutely.
would have been more likely for the government to have believed him.
That's an interesting debate.
I feel like there's a real chance they would have.
Yeah,
You know.
and maybe in, you know, what role would the faith play? Because, you know,
Mm-hmm.
Arroway is not religious, and she comes back with like, oh, this is what I saw. Would someone like Drumlin have an easier time convincing people, or would he doubt himself more as a religious man? Would he doubt himself less? You know, that's a very interesting debate as to their differences as characters, because
Mm-hmm.
I think they are pursuing the same truth. You know, they kind of have the same goal. They're both scientists. They both want to learn new things and further humanity, but they're very different ways about
He
it.
does want to learn new things in theory, but he also confines himself to the point where he isn't willing to try new
Yeah,
experimental techniques.
he sits in
Arroway
the
is like,
background and
yeah,
steals others' work. Yeah,
yeah. Arroway is actually the one willing to spend 4 years in New Mexico. Shout out and like,
yeah, very large array.
and putting all the time in with her team, with I believe what's his name,
Uh,
Kent, I believe. Kent Clark.
Yes, played by William Fichtner.
Yeah. Very good performance also. Like, it's really,
Yeah,
uh,
and I really like this character. You know,
oh, yeah.
as to
Now,
maybe this is just me, but I didn't necessarily understand if there was like a higher importance or if he's just, you know, a character in the film. But he plays a role as he seems to be the character that listens and he
mhm,
notices things. You know, he hears her when she's on the radio telling them to go,
mhm,
and he's also the one who can tell that's like a wrong frequency and tells them to tune things. And so I think that's important that because he's very silent, but he's always listening. You know
mhm.
that's the kind of
I mean, he's blind
yeah, well,
also,
yeah,
of course. That's like a big part of it as well. That he's the only one that's literally only
only
able
able
to
to
listen.
navigate through sound. Yeah,
Uh-huh. And so, of course, he's the one that's like able to understand things on
yeah,
such a
yeah.
deeper level. Um, and also, if you're still listening and you haven't seen a movie, like, I mean, go watch it, but we're spoilers. I think one of the big like shocks of the movie, of course, like when you think about the movie in terms of, like, just a crazy scene, is when everyone is there for the first time getting the message from the aliens,
Yeah,
and it's a message. The first message that we ever put out
yeah,
is Adolf
Hitler.
Hitler. Yeah, which is I'm guessing you were pretty surprised.
Yeah,
I mean, it makes sense when like you think about it because
yeah,
that was
yeah.
like the first thing that we ever put out. But you see the symbol, and you think in your head that looks like
Uh-oh.
that, but you're also like, oh, maybe it's just like kind of the '90s. It's like this weird sci-fi effect, like they're just trying out something else, and they zoom out, and you're like, oh my god.
Yeah, it's one of those scenes that at first I was like, "What on earth?"
Hmm.
And then as they explained it, and I realized it myself, I was like, "Oh
That
yeah, yeah,
that makes
that
perfect
absolutely
sense.
makes sense."
Yeah. It's a
And
very exciting scene.
and it's good writing too, because you know if you line up
Hmm.
the time, you know, light years to travel to, what was the name of the star system?
Vega.
Vega. Yes,
Yeah.
it was Vega. The time to travel there and back is exactly how long it's been since that first transmission,
Hmm.
at least in the time, and I absolutely agree that was powerful scene. It kind of
Hmm. It really shakes your faith in like everything that's
yeah.
happening. I think the other scene that I'll say was NASA like was involved in like some points of it, and they like really I think were approved in the movie except one scene, which in my opinion is a great scene because it really once again emphasizes the stakes. But the cyanide pill scene,
Oh
where they said they like put out a press statement. They said NASA does not do that. We do not give our astronauts cyanide pills. And Carl Sagan said like they do, like they actually do. And so like there's two conflicting statements. It's kind of
I mean,
funny.
to me it makes sense.
It
If,
does
if
make
you don't know
sense.
where you're going and you don't know what's going to happen, I'd
Hmm.
rather have a cyanide pill than
Hmm.
a slow painful death,
Well, it's a great scene.
especially
To,
with aliens. Mm-mm.
hmm I mean, it's a really like powerful moment, and like
Yeah,
obviously you know that this is like high stakes, but
and
at that moment you're really like,
you know something
damn.
I just realized myself,
Hmm.
touching on the faith part, is Arroway, at this point she's starting to understand faith, but she still doesn't have it. She's the one who brings up that the design doesn't have a chair.
Hmm.
She has faith that the aliens know what they're doing. Other people are like, no, you need a suit, you need like safety, you need all this stuff. And they're very, very, very adamant that they don't have faith in the aliens, that they don't trust them and that they should take their own measures when ultimately her faith in the aliens is what
Hmm.
saves her.
Ends up
And
incredible.
that's an interesting scene to me too, that she's starting to have faith with aliens first, which is interesting.
Hmm.
And then as she comes back, she really understands that better. But
Well, it's always just been about the faith of science of her,
yeah,
and yeah, that exact moment of realization that she needs to put her faith to the test of exactly that they science knows something greater than she can ever know in that
yeah,
exact moment, and that what this has been the way it's been for millions of years. Who knows when the human race, at least in the point in the universe of the movie, is going to further contact with the alien species. But at a certain point, it doesn't really matter because this entire thing feels
hmm
like it's been built for her and her specifically.
yeah,
Which it's just such a great movie in terms of that regard. Of it really is just a character study.
Yeah,
and it
absolutely.
it really tricks you into thinking that it is going to be like entirely about aliens, which in a way it is, but
Well,
most ways it isn't. It's about having one final moment with a person that you lost,
yeah.
which just I just find unbelievably moving.
And in one connection that we see in both movies
Hmm.
that are sci-fi and have like supposedly, higher power intervening and helping them from the shadows.
Hmm.
And in both movies, we don't. I mean, obviously, in Interstellar, the twist is that
It is
there are
him.
no aliens;
Yeah.
it's just us. And in this one, the aliens take the appearance of us.
Hmm.
And in both, that that connection between, obviously in Interstellar, it's between humans, but across time in that one, which is
Hmm.
like the alien encounter. For example, when they hold, when Bran reaches out for herself,
Hmm.
um, or no, sorry, it's Cooper.
Oh, cool. Yeah, cool.
When Cooper reaches out for Bran's hand, that's like the alien encounter, and it's human to human. And in this film, we see that too, where her ultimate alien encounter is with her father,
Hmm.
and it's that human to human. And that's why I think both these films are. I mean, you had a great call putting these together. Is that
Hmm.
they're both alien movies that really just deal with humans. They're
Yeah.
just about us.
It's a human connection told from the perspective of like aliens,
Yeah.
as something greater, but it's deeply human. The other connection, less philosophical and great, I guess, between the two movies that I thought was a little fascinating was there is, I don't have his name written down, but there was another candidate that is American that is supposed to be like the main one before they ultimately choose Airway. And
Oh, the astronaut. Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
the astronaut, and he steps down because
His
his
son tells
son
him no.
and his daughter don't want him to go. Exactly what happens with Cooper
Cooper.
in Interstellar, but it's really funny. In this movie, you actually have an astronaut that cares about his kids.
Yeah. And back to like that brief discussion is like you can see why Professor Brand wanted to lie to Cooper.
Mhm.
You just it's a hard bond to separate a father from his daughter. And if you told him you're never going to see her again, he wouldn't have gone.
Mhm.
Because he really does care about her. The reason he went though is because he believed he was saving her, and then he'd be back.
Yeah, he thinks he's gonna die when he goes back to Earth because he knows he can never come back. But just to see his daughter and his son again.
Yeah.
I mean, his daughter. But that's a very powerful thing in that, and I just think it's very fascinating that they have a very small little
Yeah,
similar
it's a short
character arc
scene.
in there. And maybe that's what the inspiration came from. I don't really know because
Maybe.
like they in Interstellar
And
was like conceived of on a set of Contact.
and it's an interesting scene in Contact because you could argue you could have always just made Arroway the leader. Why did he have to be the leader who was dethroned because he dropped out?
Hmm.
It seems very intentional that they put that there.
Hmm.
And now that I'm thinking about it,
It's definitely sexist. Like,
you think so?
yeah, I'm pretty sure that's like something that's for me.
Hmm.
But what's your perspective?
I was thinking of it as like, well, because my thing is we're not really introduced to his character. We don't touch on like what is he good at. We're told he's an astronaut, so he's
Yeah.
kind of good in space, but like we're not told if he's like a scientist, if he's like philosophical, if he's all these things we don't know.
Hmm.
So it's just interesting to me. I don't necessarily have perspective on it, but it's very interesting that they would go through that effort to show that he was the one winning.
Hmm.
And I could agree with you that it's like to show that she is not people's first choice. Maybe that is ultimately just it. That like
Yeah.
people didn't want her at first, but she's like the backup option.
Hmm. Well, it's definitely a sexism thing. And it's definitely a religious thing. It's like it's just America being hypercritical of her, despite the fact that she's the one
And
always pushing like the path forward, the only one actually making genuine progress. Because if it weren't for her,
they
none
wouldn't
of this
have
would
had
have
any
happened.
of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I agree with that. And also, I think one little note is maybe it's about the Americans' unwillingness to change in a way.
Hmm.
They want an astronaut who's already been to space. They want someone who's like done this before. They want consistency. They want very much like
Hmm.
programmed things, and they're not willing to put their faith in Arroway in that way.
Definitely deeply American, which
Absolutely.
ties into my list for Contact that I came up with.
Alrighty.
There's a director, one of the great Japanese masters of modern cinema, especially modern filmmakers. His name is Kiyoshi Kurosawa, who said that he considered Robert Zemeckis, sorry, to be the most deeply American filmmaker and make the most sincere American movies.
Hmm.
Whether or not that's true or not, it's up to debate. But I have, for all, it's good and bad, my top 5 most American moments in Robert Zemeckis movies
Oh wow.
/ his career. All right, number 5. I have the 3-movie run of Welcome to Marwen, the remake of The Witches, and the remake of Disney's Pinocchio. Nothing more American than that run of 3 movies right there. If you know Welcome to Marwen, you know Welcome to Marwen, because that movie is crazy. Number 4, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Taking a movie that's all about cartoons, but it's actually about LA traffic laws. Come on. Number 3, I have Contact. It's having whether or not a character believes in God being a focal point of whether or not she deserves to go to space, tied with Matthew McConaughey being a spirit guide to Bill Clinton.
That's pretty
It's number
American.
3. That's a pretty American, man. Number 2, I have Back to the Future, implying that Chuck Berry stole Johnny Be Good from a white guy. The most bizarre moments in that whole movie.
The real creators of rock and roll.
He's just like, yeah, we need to take it back. What are you doing? All right. Number 1, I just have Forrest Gump as a whole.
That's
We're like the entire
is very
movie. He's
true.
like, you just need to like stay committed to the U.S., man. Don't say no. Go fight in Vietnam. And also the Black Panther Party are evil for some reason. Like, that's just a bizarre movie. And I do think Robert Zemeckis is a great filmmaker and one of the defining American filmmakers, despite the fact I don't know if he has that reputation for a lot of people.
I would say he probably doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, when I think big directors, honestly, Christopher Nolan jumps to the top of the list. And you know, there's a lot of people, but I feel like most people who are more casual about movies would probably only be able to tell you like 2.
Yeah, it's
And-
like Nolan, Spielberg, maybe
Yeah.
Scorsese.
Yeah.
You know, Robert Zemeckis. I mean, he's probably done like some of their favorite movies. They just
Yeah, in
might not
some
know
ways,
their
yeah.
name. And I don't know. I don't love all of his movies, but I think he's really fascinating as a guy and as a technician. I mean, there was a period in the 2000s where he just like dedicated himself to like motion capture technology and made like the Polar Express and the Jim Carrey Christmas Carol movie, if you remember that one. And that's why I think this is such a perfect movie for him in terms of like experimenting with like the science, the technicality of it, really trying to push forward and paving a new path for emotional storytelling, but still retaining that heart, because you have a lot of technicians, filmmakers that really only care about the presentation of it and don't really care much about the heart, when I don't think that's ever been the case for Zemeckis. He's always been like a very sentimental guy, sweetie. Some cases that almost is goes against the film and makes it worse, like Forrest Gump, which is one of the worst movies ever made, but it's undeniably technically brilliant, and most of his movies are. However, I'll also point in here, since he did for the last one, wasn't received that well. It has 62 Metacritic, 69% Rotten Tomatoes. Critics didn't love it at the time. Letterboxd 3.8, which isn't. It's just pretty good, honestly. Like that's they like it. I just don't think it's like considered to be that much of a classic like that at this point, unfortunately.
And I think that could come from this movie's in some ways very philosophical. You know, it really makes you think. But if you, I mean. It definitely has its thrilling moments too. That's my thing. You know, it has the whole wormhole scene. You know, it has all these things that are very theatrical and very much get you in the story. But I can also understand if you're going in for like a sci-fi movie about aliens, how you might be disappointed.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that's how you should judge the movie. It's like, oh, this is what I was expecting, so I'm going to give it a bad review. But I can see how that happens. You know.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, I can picture like a lot of people probably watching like the first half hour to even an hour of this. There's really only like space stuff in the end.
Moving the satellite dishes.
It's just like, oh, it's just this about a girl and her dad dying. Like, What is this? And it's not really available like too many places streaming, you know.
Yeah.
I do feel like this movie deserves like a bit more of a cult classic reputation. It has some. I think it deserves more. Made a healthy box office total
Yeah,
though.
I was doing some research on that. I heard it had a good premiere,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think it
Didn't
necessarily stuck around too long.
didn't really catch on because like I feel I don't know. I just can't. I would imagine a word of mouth would be good on it, but there's some people that just really don't like this movie in terms of a lot of it is kind of more philosophical talk and just
Hmm.
sort of people just talking in general,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
I mean, it's
Some of the
about,
most impactful scenes are just dialogue. There's no
oh,
fancy
yeah.
effects. It's just
Uh-huh.
people talking.
Everything involving the Haddon character, especially, like,
Yes.
is just like, you really just like kind of got to lock into it, you
Hmm.
know? And it's really so fascinating philosophically, and his death is really felt at the end of that
Yeah,
movie.
and he plays a very interesting role, in my opinion. He's framed as almost like a savior in a way,
Mm-hmm.
where he swoops in and gives her the funding. He swoops in and decodes the
Mm-hmm.
things they had received, and he also swoops in and tells her about the thing. So, in some ways, he feels like a plot device to just help her.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have that analysis at the trial, where it's like, and you see in his death that and you get it alluded to in a few lines where he says like all the people I've
Mm-hmm.
or all the people who've helped me, but then he corrects himself to all the people I've hurt,
Mm-hmm.
or stolen from. And you can see this is a man who has guilt, and in a way he's trying to almost redeem himself.
Mm-hmm.
And is that for religious reasons possibly? You could absolutely argue that.
Yeah.
And it makes you also question it. Do you think he was a bad guy, and is the conclusion at the trial true that maybe this is all his hoax? I think most people are less believing in that one than believing that maybe she hallucinated it all, but
Mm-hmm.
but it's also kind of a valid theory to say that the man with a lot of power and coming to the end of his life might do crazy things.
To try and always be remembered,
Yeah.
immortality. But you never really feel that you you can understand the argument when you're in the room with them to the characters of the movie, but when you actually spend time with him as the viewer and you see how he's currently living his life with like the 4 TVs
Yeah.
living in space, it's hard to imagine that he would actually do something like that, go out of his way to
Yeah.
create something like
He
that, you
seems like
know?
he's trying to atone for a
Mm-hmm.
bad life. And that's why this is never even alluded to at all. But part of me thought, I feel like he's on his own like spiritual journey, that he
Mm-hmm.
feels like the best way he can redeem his life that he feels he lived poorly is to help others. And that gives very much the impression of someone of religious
Mm-hmm.
beliefs feeling like they haven't done good enough, and they want to get back in the good graces of a higher power.
No, I definitely completely agree with that. And back to your point about the character almost being like a savior type of
Mm-hmm.
thing for the movie. The fact is that he kind of could in almost probably possibly was like a character almost exclusively for exposition
Yeah,
and
yeah.
to kind of further the plot around, but they were able to give him this much detail and this much of
Mm-hmm.
his own character. It's just fantastic writing,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, like you
Well,
really get to understand and experience him, you
yeah,
know?
and I don't think it was necessary per se, which is why I think his character is
Mm-hmm.
is much better than just exposition,
Oh
because
yeah,
they could have just had a random company fund her.
yeah. It would have
Didn't
been,
matter who it was,
and it would have been fine.
and
But
they
the
could
fact,
have had them decoded on their own.
yeah,
The only discovery and the whole second station thing could have just been told to her by the government. They probably were gonna tell her.
mm-hmm.
So
But going out of your way to write
he's
that
not
extra character,
necessary, which is why I think it's better.
yeah. Uh-huh.
Because if he was literally the only explanation for things, that's when it feels like, okay,
It would have been
he's
cheap
just a
almost.
bridge,
Yeah.
a lazy writing, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But he's in no way necessary, but he still ends up playing that role of helping when he's needed most and moving the story along.
Yeah. Another perspective that's incredibly fascinating, incredibly worthwhile.
And to touch on it again, this whole movie's about it, and he very much brings up that he has faith in Arroway. He believes in her, that she's a good he calls her a good investment, but it's very much that he has faith in her. He believes that she will do good, and that's why he's so committed to being that savior for her,
Mm-hmm.
because he has faith that she will do good, and that's what he wants to accomplish with the last bit of his life.
Exactly that. It is a really wonderful movie. I'm really glad I've gotten this time to talk with you about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not sure if there's anything more that you want to say before we wrap up.
Dare I say, do you want to briefly touch on the actual? So it's obviously a famous line from this film, but they should have sent a poet. I find that line to be very interesting to me because when I thought about it, her whole alien encounter didn't really require a scientist.
Mm-hmm.
I think she was the person who should have won.
Yeah.
I think that's undeniable. But that line to me is kind of another philosophical area where maybe certain things in the universe don't need a scientist. They need someone to appreciate them.
Mm-hmm.
The same way the alien says, just be with other people. That's what helps the loneliness. Like, we haven't discovered the secrets of the universe. We're just alone,
Oh, yeah.
And you see that through, like, she's like, what good am I here? Really,
Mm-hmm.
she's the person who should have gone, but she realizes that it's just so beyond her that what she kind of wants is just to appreciate the beauty in the art.
She is,
and that's like, dare I say, a moment of like faith. I almost thought she was gonna become a believer in some ways at that
Mm-hmm.
point, because it's almost like a divine revelation,
Mm-hmm.
which mirrors we see that mirror Joss's he's talking about when he first encountered God, how it like flipped his life, and it was like this revelation. And that's seemingly what she encounters here, and that's when she says that line. So I find it very interesting that she's like she's not obviously giving up. She's still devoted to science, but it's like a surrender to the fact that the universe is so grand and unknowable that sometimes it's better to just appreciate it than to try to understand it,
Mm-hmm. And I think the fact that she recognizes that in that moment is what makes her a poet and what makes her an artist.
Yeah.
She all of a sudden feels like that she's completely unworthy, but that's what kind of makes her the most worthy of all of them. What makes her the most selfless and the best possible candidate for who could have gone for this movie. It's a beautiful line where she really has to do some introspective thinking, and it's probably the greatest battle for her in that moment is whether or not she is actually worthy enough for herself. But the moment that she sees her dad, she realizes that it's all been building to this. Yeah. It's all for her in a way.
And it's like a surrender to that. Like, she kind of, it's not gives up, but just stops fighting. Like, it's she's shaking in the chair. She's very much strenuous. And once she gets out and she's floating there and she sees that and says that, you get this sense of just, it's like serene from then on out. It's beautiful. It's calm. In no way are we really worried anymore. Even when the alien comes up, you'd expect to be at least a little worried, but we're really not. It's painted as this beautiful scene of like, almost like divine contact, very intentionally. And that just shows us that it's like a surrender to a higher power in a way. In this case, being aliens or her destiny or, God. Yeah.
And even if she does like nothing for the rest of her career, she still always has that one moment in her life.
Absolutely.
That's why that final shot, well, not the exact final shot, but the ending of her just kind of staring out on that cliff, staying all night, staying all that time, finally recognizing the actual beauty in the world around her, not just the stars, but still appreciating everything, wanting to explore, but loving things for the way that they can be. Yeah. It's a beautiful movie. It's a philosophical film.
I'm glad to have seen it.
Yeah, I'm super happy to have talked about this one with you. This has been a really incredible episode, and I feel like I have a deeper appreciation for both movies, really.
Absolutely.
Forced myself to talk about them for so long, And I hope everyone listening does too. This has been one of the best conversations I think we've had in the show so far, and I loved having you. I hope I can have you again sometime.
Will do. I hope I can come back on.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So next episode should come out for 2 weeks from now. We'd have another very special guest. Guest picked our first film from director Denis Villeneuve. Someone who I expect to cover a lot in the show because he's very popular. We'll be talking about the movie Prisoners with Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal. And I will be pairing that with the directorial debut of one Ben Affleck called Gone Baby Gone. So if you want to stay up to date with the Luke Bugbee Show, make sure to check out Prisoners and Gone Baby Gone. I'm trusting you've already seen Prisoners. If you haven't seen Gone Baby Gone, it's on Canopy, free streaming service as long as you have a library card. So no matter what, it's worth it. Thank you once again so much to Liam for being such a wonderful guest, and thank you for everyone listening. Have a great day.